Have any of you ever been up to the redwood forest up there? Most of you have? Yeah? Well, I was visiting up there about 2 or 3 years ago. I'd borrowed a truck, and I was driving out into the rain. It always rains up there, they say, and it was then. And I drove along this long, winding road through the mountains there and up to the top of this plateau where a grove of redwood trees were. I jumped out of the truck, and because it was raining, I took my shirt off and left it in the truck, and then proceeded to sprint through the trees there, middle of February, raining, quite cold. And I was running along, feeling more and more like a baby animal, the size of those trees. I looked back and I saw this little tinker toy of a truck back there, and I thought, this is it. Something's going to happen, real strange. And I was running along, and suddenly I saw this huge old tree. Well, all of them were that way. And I darted inside this tree because it was hollowed out on the inside, and I was standing in almost a full-size room, and I was looking out at the trees and the rain when suddenly I had this overwhelming sensation that I was not alone. I slowly turned around, and where the shaggy innards of this big old redwood tree came down and met the forest floor there was a little light, and under that little light was a little guy there, little guy about that big. He was dressed pretty spiffy. He was skinny, and he was shaking his knees and reading from this scroll, sort of an elocution of sorts. Had a very high little voice. And around him in this amphitheater arrangement was a lot of what looked to me to be very large little people. They had folds that came out, and they sat on pillows, and they were stark naked. I didn't know what to think. They were kind of looking at this guy kind of askance, you might say. And he was trembling. I guess he was delivering some last testament or something or other, or whatever, his excuse, his big excuse. And they were listening to him. And I wanted to listen, so I put my ear down, and, well, I guess I disrupted those little fat people in their little program that afternoon, and they picked up their pillows and waddled off, leaving this poor little guy up there in the front under that light. And he was reading away behind that scroll, and imagine his surprise when he got through reading and rolled up that scroll and saw this big, huge, humongous ear in front of his face. Well, he said, you know, I can't handle this. I best just slip out of here. He dropped the scroll and he took off. And I picked up the scroll, and knowing that it was my only evidence of my encounter with these little people. The fat little guys took all the pillows. So there was only this scroll. And I happened to have this little plastic box with a magnifying glass in it. In fact, I think the last time I was in Palo Alto here, I had the plastic box with me and the little scroll. Since then, I've read it so many times I have it memorized, and I was going to recite it for you now, hoping that if you heard it before, you'll hear it in a new light today. The Contrastogical Turbo Report. The turbo rights of wantonway become the riddled room to play, to share the whirp and thwart the cray, but nigh while Nellie watches. For Nellie's guise is an Eram's morph from a dower's dare, only liking a four to snibble and snudge. But for sot, when you snerve up your Yusuf to see, you know that it's tacious and lure. But nigh for the roon, with his tarsal of crags that decoddle the mosier of the two torn tags of Maggie McPherson's lace. He's a raspy young Nort, very glouseled and taut, with his nose on the gruel and his brain all a-twitching with juice. A wager he tore from the pack and was off, to proffer the purse of the town sneeze and cough, and to slaunchick an entry to yon other side where minyeps and tarquels and mogblips reside. He jonders his mert with a glouth and an ottle to trestle a trill so fair that he missed Nelly's guise and does snuck quick past Johnson and snare. And I think this is the sad part. But the rune from Wales, wadanay, wadamel, beard a grey cellar, do Donnelly, marmally, bumperty, fundamel fell, where the swells of the sapin thwarp warble and quell to the dog-dying trills of his mirth so fair, till lost in the yarlow, while spilling his quotes in a whirly-o-burly-o way, the rune would degostle to shed a galossicle, turn up his furnick and say, thwart not the what-not of wanton way luck, a Jungian Freudowitz slaunches the muck, and will never be free from malorical mire. Oh, Janssen, it's nericum. Jolly old pericum. Then shrolloped in rune of baloricum fire, the wishy-wash, ashy old rune did expire. From far off between the warts of stogical and lophical time, deep, 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 deep mongst munders of non-cloft mistance, i.e. mud, a skirting sherpo came, floutled up through the mogtalk blippy, and there in the turlets he casually poised while smirking on pillows of proof. Sagashi, the flatuous, told-you-so virtuoso, with a pen name, Eminepa, pouf.